think the first thing we got to talk about is basically what's going on with Apple.
Yes.
So Apple is coming out with something new.
Okay, it's $500. You have no choice of carrier. The battery can't hold a charge, and the reception isn't very.
Shut up and take my money. Neat.
Now for the earpiece.
But my favorite app is called Twitcher.
Apple Vision Pro.
Sorry, let me turn that off. But yeah, it's really cool though, right? Like the idea of a different viewing experience for the SOS, the Mac SOS system, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they have a whole hardware stack like in there, like it's a whole computer basically in there.
Yeah, and I just want to say this shot. I believe this shot is taken straight from Ready Player One.
I mean, it might as well.
When I saw that, I was like, dude, that is Ready Player One when he puts on the goggles.
Yep. Here we go. Going in. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think? Are you excited for this? Are you even going to buy this? What is this to Kyle? What is this to Kyle McGill?
Oh, so to me, it's cool? Question mark. The thing is that like given the price point and the fact that I really am not that interested in VR in the first place, I really like. I wouldn't have known about it if you hadn't have sent me the video of this.
Oh,
basically.
really?
Yeah. So, you know, it's I mean, it's $3,500.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously this is still like, I understand, like from what I understand, it's still in development, right? They kind of were showing this early, what they're working on. It's going to come out like next year or something like that.
Yes.
So
and
like,
I believe that's so the other apps or non Apple apps have time to make apps.
I mean, I think that's a smart move. I think, and actually, Corbin, who might be on here later, my friend Corbin, he works for Meta, and he actually he works on their VR experience, and he had an interesting just like opinion, right? Just because he's in that space, and he said like, well, I mean, technically, in a way, it's really validating, right? In that, it's proving that other players are making these VR headsets and these experiences for them, right? So like it's sort of like he saw it as like cool. We were like expanding the market, right?
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. He's got I'd say he's got a pretty open outlook on it. Which I was like, yeah, that's an interesting way to view it. And plus, like also, I mean, if you think about it, if Apple still has a similar price point, I know it's going to go on sale eventually, right? But I don't know by how much, right? But you'll have sort of like in the future, we could see like this sort of high-end bespoke, you know, more like designer headsets versus something a bit more cheap for the, like, I would say for the just general masses, probably for someone like me, right? In which like, it's, you know, like a few $100, right?
Yeah. I mean, it costs as much as like 3 top-end iPhones.
Yeah. Well, technically, how much does like a MacBook Pro cost out of the box these days?
Like a base model is probably like 2,000.
Okay, so it's even more.
Maybe 1,500 to 2,000, depending on RAM and all that stuff.
Okay,
like that.
So it's like even more expensive than like what you'd expect for a laptop.
And the battery life is 2 hours.
Yeah. That's, you know what, that seems to be like a bottleneck for a lot of technology that requires battery. It is just that like battery technology and like storage capacity is and also quality of storage is always an issue. It's always a bottleneck.
So I travel a lot. And on planes and stuff like that. And when they were talking about the plane thing, they were like, "Oh, and you can expand your movie and all that stuff." I'm like, "Okay, this is sick. I'm digging this. You know, I can watch a movie like giant screen and not the little one in front of you, or you're like your neck all tweaked from the seat in front of you, and you're like you're literally like on a plane and you're like this, trying to watch a movie. You're like, oh my gosh, look at Gandalf go down the hill, you know, for Helm's Deep. But how epic would that be? But then I thought about it. my battery might die halfway through a movie.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I mean,
and
you could probably plug in and play still, but I mean, as long as there's a plug, you can plug. But then you're basically just connected the whole time.
a lot of movies are 2 hours plus these days. I know we've got our hour and a half affairs, but those,
Yeah.
those are getting fewer and far between, it seems.
So, what did you think about the display of the eyes?
Okay, so that was really interesting because I felt that they offered. I mean, you can tell as per a lot of Apple products are, it's very well designed. Right, it's designed forward.
It looks cool.
In that it talks. So the two things for me was being able to see the person's eyes. So in a way, like it's like, okay, they're still thinking about a human connection. You just don't have a plate of like glass or like plastic like in front of someone's eyes, which is usually how you communicate with people, how you establish a connection, right? So that's interesting that you kind of have a digital representation of your eyes, right? Because it's not necessarily you're looking at your actual eyes, it's a screen facing outward that is showing a video of your eyes, which is really interesting. And then also the fact that it shows kind of like a blurry version of what you're watching. It also communicates to the outside world like, hey, I'm watching something, right? So it can tell when your eyes are engaged in watching it because due to its eye tracking, right? If you look away from what you're watching, it'll boop and it'll show your eyes. So it's got really fine-tuned eye tracking. And I think that's really neat because it strikes the balance between the person that's using them and the people that are outside, because VR is an immersive experience, right? It's going to detract from the rest of the outside world. So it's at least trying to create that bridge between those two. And I thought that was at least a thoughtful design, right?
Yeah. Were you a fan of the CGI avatar?
So I think that is super fascinating and probably the one I was the most stoked about just because it's not an avatar. It's not a representational like simulacrum of who you are, kind of like how like the metaverse has like your, kind of like we, like we people. Yeah. Amiibo. Yeah. Here it's like, you can tell it's kind of jumpy and glitchy, but I think that like, I'm willing to bet that once this comes into more general circulation, people will be used to that, right? Their mind will kind of fill in the gaps a bit, right?
I mean, the tracking seems pretty advanced for the eye tracking and the finger tracking.
Really,
there's been a couple reviews online too of people who actually been able to mess with it, and even them just talking about how quick the reaction time was and stuff is really cool. It's just exciting to even hear work. I mean, this is the first product. It's like the first iPhone. The first iPhone was very basic. And now what you can do with an iPhone is just incredible. And the software and all the cool camera and the tracking and even the pixels within the frame. And so it's like a 4K resolution, like on there. It sounds really cool. The technology, it's not bad for a first run. But I'm just curious what everyday use is going to be for this, because you do look kind of ridiculous. And I think one of the reviewers, I think it was Marcus, he mentioned like, imagine being at a birthday party.
Yeah.
And like you're trying to capture this moment with the 3D camera and everything. That's great, but everyone else is going to remember you not being in the moment.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And, but then again, like to argue, how many people have their phones up in front of their face recording? That's a counter argument. I mean, how many people at any event you go to, it's like phones are up first, and then it's like, and this can at least you can be recording and also interacting at the same time. You just have a silly goggles in front of your. But I mean, it's an improvement.
Just to go into chat here real quick. Looks like Jeepster Mario has an interesting point, right? So those goggles are going to last maybe an hour before you're going to be looking through a cracked screen. So that's the, I mean, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about with, they're also pretty heavy from what I understand, right? Or at least they have some weight to them, right? Given that you have all that hardware in there.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, who knows like what might come of that, right? I mean, also if you think about neck fatigue after a while, I don't know what's going to go on with that. But I mean, like I would hate to pay $300 or $3,500 and then have them break,
anything,
crack
right?
by dropping them. Yeah.
Gosh,
I don't know how durable the lenses are, but
I don't know either. I think we have to wait until the time comes, right?
Yeah.